إنا أعتدنا للكافرين سلاسل وأغلالا وسعيرا إن الأبرار يشربون من كأس كان مزاجها كافورا عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نظرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا متكئين فيها على الأرائك لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تذليلا ويطاف عليهم بآنية من فضة وأكواب كانت قوارير من فضة قدروها تقديرا ويسقون فيها كأسا كان مزاجها زنجبيلا عينا فيها تسمى سلسبيلا ويطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون إذا رأيتهم حسبتهم لؤلؤا منثورا وإذا رأيت ثم رأيت نعيما وملكا كبيرا عاليهم ثياب سندس خضر واستبرق وهلوا أساور من فضة وسقاهم ربهم شرابا طهورا إن هذا كان لكم جزاء وكان سعيكم مشكورا إنا نحن نزلنا عليك القرآن تنزيلا فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا واذكر اسم ربك بكرة وأصيلا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ahsan. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah, Brother Jawad. So next, inshallah, I'd like to invite Brother Naqi. And Brother Naqi will be discussing a topic that I believe will be very relevant. I'll try not to. I'll let Brother Naqi describe exactly what the topic is and introduce it. But it's a very relevant topic in discussion to online security and privacy, and especially how WhatsApp fits into this. I know there's been a lot of confusion with what's been going on recently. So, Alhamdulillah, thank you, Brother Naqi, and I'll let you take it away.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, as Brother Abbas mentioned, um, I'll be talking about online security and privacy, but my focus is going to be WhatsApp because that's in the news. I'm sure everybody had seen that infamous pop up for privacy and security that Facebook was asking you to acknowledge and accept. So I'll try to share some details on what WhatsApp is, when it was founded, the ideas, the goals, the reasons behind it, when Facebook acquired it, what happened, a little bit what encryption is, which will lead into what can people see, what can Facebook see, what can other individual outside of Facebook could potentially see. So, and after that, I'll give my opinions and reasonings on the topic itself. And then we'll have an open question and answer session as well, if time permitting. If there are any questions, I would encourage you to raise them if you have them. I'll figure out if I can answer it right away, or maybe in the next couple of slides and the coming slides, I'll answer them. Or we'll take it to the end and we'll have a more engaging discussion there. So first off, before I go into that, why am I talking about this and why am I relevant? So I have been doing mobile software development for the past 12 years now for both iOS and Android application. I've worked with many different startups and built many different applications. So this topic is something that I have a little bit extra knowledge on. And I also have my own company where I do offer services and have employees that are working on same, if not similar, kind of privacy and security functions, mostly towards healthcare and healthcare related privacy. So that gives me a lot of ammunition to talk about this topic. So first and foremost, I'll talk about history of WhatsApp. So WhatsApp was founded by two entrepreneurs, Brian Acton and Jan Koum. And they started off, they were actually early employees of Yahoo. And they saw as iPhone was becoming more and more popular and the App Store ecosystem was getting larger and larger, they saw the value of creating their own chatting application to solve some of the features that weren't existing there at the time. So they first launched it in around 2009 for iPhone, and then quickly they got really good traction because it was something that people were craving, and SMS wasn't helping. And they also eventually were planning to add groups and other features, which was very convenient for the time. So they quickly got traction and they started getting bigger and bigger. So I believe that within 2 months they had like 250,000 users. Eventually, when Facebook bought them, they had about 200 to 300 million users around the world. And we'll come back to that and why that number is significant. Um, and Facebook acquired them in around 2014 for approximately $19.3 billion. That's a lot of dollars. And Facebook, why would they acquire it? Simply put, Facebook wanted users. They wanted more and more people using their product and services. And I'll share a quote of what Mark Zuckerberg had to say about this once he was when he acquired WhatsApp in the next coming slides. Um, Now, you may have also heard of Signal, but the interesting thing is Signal was actually founded by Brian Acton, who was the founder of WhatsApp. He left Facebook, which was WhatsApp at the time, and he went ahead and created Signal. Signal has been since 2000, I believe, 17 is when it started. He started the consortium. It's an open source platform, which means that all of its code is available for anybody to read and evaluate and see how the privacy and security features are available. So it's nothing hidden. And they also created the protocol, which is now dubbed the Signal protocol for encryption, which Facebook is using for WhatsApp. And I'll explain that as we moving forward when I detail about encryption itself. So, question, I kind of answered it loosely on why did Facebook buy WhatsApp? It's simply because of users, and more users. More people you have, the bigger checks you can get from your venture capitalist firms or banks or hedge funds, because they see uh, um, um, the second part to it, which is the monetization part to it, which is ads, and more ads. So Facebook is free, and it's free for a reason, because they're collecting people's habits, their how they're committing with other people, and serving people ads based off of that. And they collect marketing dollars to target a specific ad to a specific person at a specific time, so that that person is more likely to make a purchase of that particular product. And then when that purchase is triggered, Facebook get a cut of it. So more information they can gather and harvest, better ads they can provide to you, and then sell it to you. Now, there is some debate on that. It actually makes people's lives a little easier because you are presented with information which is relevant to you, to your needs, but at the expense of you sharing things about your life. Uh, and to give you a simple example of that is, you share that you are doing some activity. Let's say you're doing a project at home where you are painting your room, and you go and put that on Facebook. Then you'll start seeing ads for paints, because they see that you are going to be interested in it. And if you're interested in it, if you're in the market for it, they start presenting ads to you about different products. So I'm sure you probably have heard of this, and you have maybe talked about this too, that so and so was talking to me about certain items that they were trying to purchase. Now, the day later, I'm seeing ads for it. Its association with them is causing that. They might have searched it. You may be a friend with them on Facebook. Facebook thinks that you are a friend of them. You may be interested in buying paint at that point. So, and one of the classic example is, and this is told time and time again, if something is free, then you are the product. You are paying for your data. You are giving that away, information away for them to use it however they want. I believe a couple of years ago, Facebook made it in their terms of service that any public picture that you post is a property of Facebook, which means that they can use it however they feel it. They can use it for marketing campaigns, they can use it for other internal or external use, for commercial use. So once you sign that EULA, you are giving them that right to use it, which is why it's absolutely important for pictures that are private to you to keep them private, only amongst the friends and family that you want to share with. So with WhatsApp, I'll generally answer this here, and then I'll quickly jump into more like privacy and security discussions that we're going to have. So, what does Facebook have access to? Um, of course, if you are talking about just Facebook's website, they can see and they know everything that you are posting. They have access to all of your pictures. They have access to all of your friends, their names, and of course, their information if they're sharing that. And then they also have access to, and this is the crucial one, if you use Facebook on a web browser and you have opened it up in your tab for a particular website, Facebook has access to other tabs on that browser session. They can look at that content and see history of that. Well, there's a term called cookies, which are information that usually web developers keep on your computer to give you a better experience of, let's for instance, if you're signed in somewhere, they use that to keep you signed in, so you don't have to sign in, put your password every single time. So Facebook, though they don't have access to the passwords, they are encrypted. but they do have access to some shared data that is kept there. So, but why does Facebook need it? Again, it comes back to serving you ads, 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 and more ads. Now, when Facebook bought um, what's called WhatsApp, um, there was a small snippet of reason on why Mark Zuckerberg bought it, and this is verbatim code for him. So I'll just read it quickly. So he said, the idea, he said, is to develop a group of basic internet services that would be free of charge to use, a 911 for the internet. These could be a social networking service like Facebook, a messaging service, maybe search, and other things like weather. Providing a bundle of these free of charge to users will work like a gateway drug. So, this is a key factor here, like a gateway drugs of sorts. Users who may be able to afford data services and phones these days just don't see the point of why they would pay for those data services. This would give them some context for why they are important, and that will lead them to pay for more services like this, or so the hope goes. So, if you like, the key note is here is these services are gateway drugs, as Mark mentioned it. And for people that are in sales, there's a concept of land and expand, which is you try to acquire a customer and you start offering them services so you can expand in within that customer to start getting more money from them. So Facebook is using the same um, idea. However, they're offering it for free, and then offering you services that may seem free to you, but they're getting paid for it, for all of those services. So that's just a quick overview of WhatsApp and Facebook, and why this topic is important. So um, the last part is, should we trust Facebook? Um, Time and time again, from the inception till now, uh, Facebook has shown that it is very hard to trust them. Um, of course, they're in it to make money. A lot of, if not most of their decisions are because of those, and they want to make money, and they want to find ways to do that. As a matter of fact, the early founders of Facebook recently, about 2 years ago, especially once their equity was vested, started talking about certain elements about Facebook, that they work with psychologists, psychiatrists, to figure out how they can make the platform sticky. By sticky, I mean is they want users to be living in Facebook, and they use terms like like giving people notifications about so and so taking a trip, or so and so added a new status, or like giving small bits of news information to you by triggering endorphins, which is good happy receptors in your brains, so that you always come back to Facebook. Once you come back to Facebook, you're presenting ads, and they can make money off of you. And since the inception of Facebook, time and time again, I would suggest that I'll link an article from New York Times, actually NBC News, which has a timeline of all the issues that Facebook has had from 2006, when they first debuted Newsfeed, which is a core feature now, where it sent out Newsfeed to everybody publicly. They made it private much later. Then, once they introduced advertising privacy issues, where they can see content of your posts, to even private posts and images, and they started scraping data off of that. In 2011, they were charged by FTC for privacy, to the point where for the next 20 years they agreed that FTC could do a random privacy evaluation to them at any point in time. So they're still getting that through. There was a bug in 2013 which exposed all private contact information for people. and they didn't tell that about that until like a couple of months and maybe like even a year later. 2014, they had a mood manipulation experiment on thousands of Facebook users where they used data to present information to a wider audience, good information to some, bad information to some, and then they saw what they were posting after that. So there was an experiment that they were running. Um, um, and there's a bunch of them. And I'm sure with Cambridge Analytica, which was one of the recent ones, where one of the intelligence operative in 2016 was able to harvest information about users. Facebook knew about it and didn't feel necessary to tell us about it. So it's Facebook has made it very hard to trust them, and it's very difficult for take their word. Now there are some safeguards, and this is where encryption comes. And if you already don't know, uh, internet is a public forum. We should treat it like a public forum, as if you are outside and talking to people openly, where people can listen in, they can see, they can uh, hear. If you're putting videos, of course, they can see that too. So anything on internet is by nature free, available to anybody that has access to it and can get access to it. Encryption is a way to stop that. And what it does, the concept of encryption is nothing new. This has been happening for centuries, ever since human beings have had conflict. They wanted to send information out. They would hide it. They would put in lock and key. They would scramble it in a way where the information was not relevant to anybody else, only to people that knew what it meant. Um, it essentially takes so encryption essentially takes a readable text password, and alters it in a random form, because computers are very good in making random numbers and making them really fast. So it jumbles up the information and then presents it to somebody else that knows how to encrypt it. And as mentioned, like, this is something not a new. It's been there. There's a lot of different strategies of how to do it, and I'll explain them. But this is something that is very much needed to secure your information on the internet in a public forum. Essentially, what happens is whenever something is encrypted, you take that message and then send that over to a person saying, "Here's my message, and here's a lock." The person that you're sending a message to has a key to unlock it, and then see what the message is. And that's like a very simplistic definition of encryption. But as I mentioned, why is it needed? Privacy. This is a key thing: is privacy for to make sure that what you are trying to communicate to is not leaked to somebody else. It could be governments that you want to keep the information away from. It could be an individual that you want to keep this information from. So the goal is that you intend to only allow the recipient that's getting the message being able to see it, and they're the rightful owner to be able to see it. Um, and it also helps in current day internet. It helps with preventing attacks, um, ad networks from seeing information that you don't want them to see. Internet service providers, so they can secure traffic of people trying to reach other websites or other services. And of course, like, to make sure that governments don't intercept and read sensitive data. Um, of course, and then security. Security is mostly so that wherever information is either in transit, which where you're trying to communicate during an active discussion, or when data is stored with regards to that discussion, is secured, so that nobody can just go someplace and see this data. So it's essentially like you have a cache file that you have at your home. If it's in your home, nobody can see it. But if you keep it outside, everybody has access to it. And if somebody wants to pick it up, they'll pick it up. It might count to theft, but if it's available, then argument can be made is it was just there. I just picked it up. So security is necessary for it. It's also used for data integrity. There are some places and some instances where you want to make sure that the data that you're sending to one particular person for a particular process is correct. This is for credit cards. Yes, they have to be private and they're secure, but integrity is a big deal too, because what if the data gets corrupted and somebody else is charged for the purchase that you're trying to make? So encryption helps with that to make sure that data is not corrupted in transit. Of course, authentication, most people, we are aware with username and passwords. So it's used to make sure that what you're trying to access, you are allowed to access. Lastly is regulations. So these are um, standards, compliance standards that are enforced by governments, institutions. Some of them is like healthcare has a big regulation called HIPAA. Healthcare instructions privacy is something like, I forget the acronym, it's called HIPAA, which defines how information needs to be secured, who can access it, when they can access it. Is it just doctors that can access it, or a particular doctor that you have given access to? So there's a lot of rules and regulations to follow. And one of the biggest one in recent times is GDPR, which is actually coming from Europe, which is locking and blocking services to force them to not remove data outside of the confines of the country. So if a person is in UK, for instance, and they're trying to use Google, then they mandate Google to keep their emails in UK, and only if they actually send it outside of the UK to go outside of the UK. Otherwise, everything stays in UK. So which is actually really good and very beneficial. Um, and more of this is better, because at the end, if we are not vocal about our privacy, then governments won't do anything with it. And we need to be making them accountable to make sure that these companies that are for profit are not sharing information, our information, without us knowing first, and also not consuming it for reasons to um, uh, send ads to us without our consent. So quickly, so what kind of encryptions we have? These are very general, basic ideas of encryptions that we have. So we have SSL, and HTTPS, and anywhere, if you see in most browsers, you have this padlock icon. If you see that, that means all your communication from your computer to the website or the web server that you're trying to communicate with, whether that's a bank, your medical provider, your Gmail, email, or any website. That means that any communication that you are going to have from your computer to them is going to be encrypted. So nobody can just do a wiretap uh, with that communication and see what's happening. So it gives you a sense of security that the person that you're trying to communicate to is the person that you intend to communicate to. Um, Second type of encryption is end-to-end security, end-to-end encryption. This is a step up from that. So this makes sure that SSL and like in transit is done correctly. But on top of that, even if somebody is able to acquire data, they would not be able to decipher it or unlock it until and unless certain keys are transmitted. The goal here is that the keys are never transmitted and leave. They don't leave the system. They only are transmitted once, and that's it. If that key is lost, then the person that is going to get the message will not be able to decrypt it. And this is as I said, is a step up in security. What essentially does is it has two keys. One is kept with the person that's sending the message. The other is sent to the person receiving the message. And then they compare the two when the message comes in. And each time a message is sent, it's made sure that it is in lock and key. Um, However, encryption is not prone to being safe all the time. It can be broken, and most of the times it's like a brute force attack. Um, I would argue like maybe 3-4 years ago it was very difficult to do these kinds of attacks, because what it requires you to do is doing millions, if not billions, of tries to break it, where they try every character they have in English language or special characters that we have in our keyboard. They try to match them one at a time and see if they can match the password, match the key cipher which is used to encryption. Um, However, computers are getting faster and faster every month, and these kinds of attacks are getting easier and easier to do, which is why it's very important to have very strong passwords. The longer the password, the secure the password, the harder it would be for them to decrypt it through these methods. So WhatsApp does use end-to-end security, which is a good thing, which means that all of your chats, at least I have very reasonable surety, all of your chats that are in text form, images, videos, voice notes are very difficult, and it's very hard to uh, know if they are encrypted. And of course, WhatsApp doesn't share that information with us, so we don't know exactly if they are, if they aren't. But text messages are for sure encrypted. And those encryption keys are created on the fly for every chat that you have, whether it's to a person, to a group, to multiple people in the group, or to groups, all the groups. Each chat that you see in your WhatsApp application has its own unique key, which means that it's very difficult to anybody to break that, because essentially they will have to have different keys. They would have to know every single key for every single chat that you have. Now, as I said, I don't know in if it's covering images. I would argue and say because images have a lot of data, and encryption can often have a negative impact on the image. Also, downloading an image, I would say is images are probably not secured. That's just my opinion. Same with audio notes if you share, and also videos that you share. Um, and usually I tend not to send those kinds of messages. This is my personal practice. I rather use some other mediums of doing that. For sure, it's something that I would try not to do myself. So I had a lot of information that I gave out. Um, um, I'll quickly. I think somebody has a question. So is it Jabber? Somebody raised their hand. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, hi, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Yeah, because like this is very hard. What is encryption, first of all? I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So okay, I'll take a step back then. So encryption is sorry. So encryption is a way of scrambling data. I don't know if you joined it later or not, but I covered this here. So it's a way to um, uh, jumble up the data into random information so that a person that's trying to snoop that information or trying to see that information is not able to decipher what it is. Only people that have special keys are able to decrypt it and know what the information is. So it's a method of making sure that the information that you're trying to send to someone is only seen and read and known by the person that you intend to send to, because they have the keys to decrypt it. Does
And
that
how
make
do you
sense?
do that?
Well, I can go into details on it. I was going more like general on it information. If everybody else wants me to, I can go into those details too.
I think let's finish your talk and then
Okay.
we'll take other questions.
Okay, let me go back to. So, what is like? There's a lot of information that I gave out, but what does it all mean, and why should we care? And as the question says, who should safeguard my privacy when I'm using the internet, when I'm using different services on the internet, whether it's email, chat, a website, when I'm paying my bills on my through my like bill pay or my bank accounts, or even filing my taxes. to a certain extent, even voting. Um, who should safeguard it? I think first and first, it should come back to us. We need to make sure that when we are trying to access and use these services, that we are trying our best to make sure that they're safeguarding it for me, where they're using these practices of making sure that the communication when it's leaving my computer or my phone is secured. When they're trying to save my information, it is secured. When they have a breach of data, then my information should be secured to the extent where if a breach happens, they can't see what is there for me, for my data that they have. Of course, there's a lot of uh, procedures and processes that are in place for certain industries, medical, financial, and some other governmental levels, but they sometimes do not translate to commercial or private entities. So we need to make sure that they are either forced or encouraged to pursue those standards so that our data is secure. Um, the second question is sharing data ever good? Um, I have mixed feelings about this. Um, there are places where I would like to share data, but there are a lot of places where I would not want to share data, and I would like to know ahead of time what kind of data would be shared from a service that I'm using. And I think this is started happening about 2 years ago, especially after GDPR, when European Union pushed that as a regulation and as a law in Europe, that a lot of these services started showcasing and telling users what kind of data is collected, what kind of data is kept in check, what kind of data is passed along to other services, for marketing reasons, for advertising reasons, or just for improving their own product. Because even to this date, every company by law is allowed to uh, gather how we use their product to improve their product. And but by that, to give you example is whenever I make a mobile application, one of the biggest questions that like the the founders of the product or my clients have is, how can I measure if somebody is using my application the way I intended to be used? How do I measure if somebody is trying to use my product and getting value from it? The only answer to that is you need to collect data to see how it's being used. And by data, I mean is how long you were on a particular application, how long you used it, what kind of interactions did you perform on it, where you make, like for instance, in if I like were to tear apart Facebook, it'd be like, okay, how long were you in newsfeed? Did you open that post of your friend? Did you comment on it? Did you did repeat comments on it? Did you open that friend's post multiple times? Did you not read somebody's post, or you skipped through it? Uh, did you stop at an ad and viewed it in entirety, or you only saw half of it and moved on? All of this information is very relevant to the platform because they're using all of that to showcase what's relevant to you so that you can come back to Facebook. And once you come back to Facebook, you're presented with ads, and the cycle comes back to that again, where you're making money on it. So I guess, again, should I keep using WhatsApp? Um, this is also a mixed bag. If the intent of using WhatsApp is to communicate with people, um, then I think it's a very good tool. It's very easy to use. Almost 500, if not 600 million users in the whole world use it. It is secure. It is easily accessible. It's always online. There are services that break down, but they make sure that it's always online. So there's a lot of good benefits to it. But knowing that's owned by Facebook, there's always a big question mark. When will it be that Facebook would change their terms of service and ask people to allow them to see the chat? It can happen. And I would venture it may happen. They're already doing that with business. There is a WhatsApp business application which businesses can sign up and then communicate with their customers. And specifically, and this is what Facebook got in trouble with recently with the privacy pop-up that everybody was seeing. That was intended for business communications, not for your regular private chat messages. It was only intended for if a business is trying to communicate with you and or you want to communicate with a business, then that chat is open. Unfortunately, some financial institutions outside of US were using WhatsApp for it. And they rightfully so had a backlash against it. It's like, hey, we are doing business with our financial customers and that data should be encrypted. You shouldn't be able to see it. You shouldn't be able to see what kind of securities or um, stocks a person is owning or what kind of purchases they're going to make. Or if I send a statement to them through WhatsApp, you shouldn't be able to see that. And all of those are very relevant concerns. And I think the backlash was good. It gives me a lot of um, uh, comfort that there are people that share that sentiment, and which is good. Which is good. Now, again, should we move to another chat or platform? It's not always easy. Signal is there, Telegram is there, um, and it's not easy for to move from one platform to the other because if you do move, then you have to move all of your friends and family to it too. So it's not just one person; it's a lot of people. And once that happens, then there's always a person that's like, "No, I don't want to move," for whatever reason, and it's not always a good strategy. What I recently I was listening to a discussion on a very like technical terms, and there was one thing that stuck to me on that, which was that uh, one person when he was asked the question like, would you use WhatsApp and would you communicate with a friend that's communicating with you on WhatsApp? And his answer was very telling. It was like, yes, I will communicate with them, but I'll make sure I censor my conversation with them. I would not be willing to tell them about if I was going to purchase something. I would not tell them on WhatsApp. If I was going to make that trip to a vacation, I would not tell them on WhatsApp. Um, it's mostly because um, um, I don't know when Facebook would flip the switch and start seeing the chat. Now, one other topic that I did not cover here, and that was on purpose because it can broaden really fast. I'll quickly allude to it, and we can see if we have some interest in it. I can expand on it. While the chat is within WhatsApp, it is secured. If you are backing it up on iCloud or backing it up using Android, it's not secured to the same extent as it is inside the application because it decrypts it and then saves a backup of it. If those services, iCloud or Google, is compromised, that backup is available for anybody to see. And also, governments and other agencies can get access to your iCloud account and to your Google account. And if you have backup there for your chats, they can see that chat. This is how they have been able to crack down on the recent efforts at what happened on January 6th and other events. So while WhatsApp makes sure it is encrypted, once it leaves as a backup from WhatsApp, those encryptions or backups are not encrypted anymore. So they're available for anybody. Yes, brother, you have your hand risen up.
So like the prank call comes, so they can also steal your data, the similar to this.
Yes, absolutely.
So like if some number comes, and at that time I did not receive it and I call them again. So the same thing.
Um, so that is correct. And you can actually see, you can actually go into your WhatsApp application in settings, and there is a account setting in there, and then there's a option there where it says request info. Um, it actually generates a report and tells you what Facebook and WhatsApp knows about you. Um, I recently actually did that a couple of days ago to make sure that I remember what it is. What it tells you is all the groups and private chats that you have done, and they list that, not the chat, just the titles of them, and then they list all the contacts that has ever communicated with you on WhatsApp, whether you have communicated with them or somebody tried to communicate to you. So they have their phone numbers on it. Beyond those phone numbers, if those people have been using WhatsApp, then of course they have their name. If they added any other extra information through WhatsApp, like address, some notes, they have access to that too.
So no, the call they're making is like on T-Mobile or different companies, not through the WhatsApp or Facebook. Still, they can steal the data from the WhatsApp or from the Facebook application you're using.
I think you are talking about regular calls that you make on your
Not
phone.
regular calls. Prank call comes. The call they hang, or you just call them and then they just music keeps coming, you keep waiting. So in that time they can steal your data from your phone.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. I think,
You
well,
know, sometimes
let me rephrase that. I think you're painting a scenario when you call somebody
the
and
prank call, prank call,
oh, prank calls.
right?
No, they can't. No,
I
they
see.
can't.
Oh,
No, that's a completely different discussion. Um, those calls, they cannot steal data from your phone. The
okay.
only time they can steal data is if they have access to your phone. Um, the regular phone calls that you make are a completely different way of communication.
Okay, thank you.
So that actually ends my presentation. Um, so if there are any uh, questions or
Yes, I have a question.
yes.
Well, so are you saying that so we know that our information is open. Facebook, they can track our information and our chat. So should we, in which case we should stay with WhatsApp? So now I think there are some question how to can. There was a video that you can prevent. Don't give them the permission. I think if you don't give the permission, they will stop it. You cannot use it. Or I received a message from somebody who was saying that do not give permission, do not give permission. Somebody told me it would come in a month. It still is not there. I think WhatsApp would a message would pop up, and then what I am looking from this session is this technical information. The general information you gave was awesome, and then I knew about it. Nevertheless, I'm here wondering. I asked so many people. This text what they sent me said do not give permission, do not give permission. So if you do not give permission, you cannot use it, I guess. But is there any way that you can stay with WhatsApp but do not give permission or not?
No, that is dependent on the terms of services as what the information was, and Facebook might decide to change it. The recent pop-up, which was requiring you to accept it, required that you accept it, and if you don't, you cannot use WhatsApp anymore.
But so it has not happened yet. They said they will.
It hasn't happened yet, but it'll come back in March.
In
Whether it'll come back in the same form, in the same way, we don't know. But it'll come back. If not this year, if not next year, it'll come back again at some point.
Are they legally allowed to do this? Because I mean, I was wondering if people they would challenge them in the court. How, why?
Because they're a private organization, they're legally allowed to do that.
But if that's the case, I mean, there are so many companies that can do that. Why the other company they don't do that?
They're doing that.
No. What the other company, like for example, Telegram, they will not ask you, but I am assuming they will not share your information that much. Is that correct?
I am actually not aware of it. I don't use Telegram as much. However,
Uh-huh.
all of these companies, when you sign up, they present all of the terms of services to you at the time you're signing up.
Yeah, we know that. But what's the alternative? Let's say if you do not accept, if the message pops up, I am assuming a message will pop up on your phone after like in March, and then if you don't accept in the system, the WhatsApp will not be able to work for you anymore. It will not uninstall, but you will not be able to use it. I'm assuming.
Correct. What will happen is
Nevertheless,
it will just keep showing you that pop-up and
yes.
requiring you to accept it. If you
Okay.
don't accept it, it'll just I don't know what they would do.
Hmm.
Of course, it won't delete the application. It doesn't have the ability to do that.
Right.
Uh,
Because on
if
your phone. So what's
yeah,
the option? What other option you have? What other things we can, like, did you
so
say Signal is the
you
open source?
yes, you can use Signal.
Hmm.
Signal is one of the ones that is open source, which gives a sense of security that they will not be sharing data with anyone because it's not meant for profit. Um,
So would you have
and
to do a start? You have to start all over. So if you have a group, you have to go add everybody
correct,
one by
you'll
one.
have to have
You cannot.
everybody. You have to add everybody that you are communicating with on Signal.
So these two companies, they are separate entities. They have nothing to do with each other.
Yes,
They
they're completely
say
different.
Signal. So, but also Signal is working in different ways. So how they make money? They don't advertise.
Signal is it's a non-profit consortium.
Oh,
What
on
happened
profit. Okay.
was, yeah, what happened was the old founder or the founder of WhatsApp, when he left
Yes.
Facebook, a few months later, he loaned money to Signal. I think somewhere
Correct.
between 45 to $50 million, which was loaned to them, but it
Correct.
wasn't payable until 2075.
So you mentioned Signal is open source. So WhatsApp is
Yes.
not open source. You don't have
No,
access
no,
to it. So
no.
to the source
WhatsApp,
to code.
WhatsApp is privately owned by Facebook.
Was basically after this happened after Facebook bought the WhatsApp. WhatsApp was like Signal, but when Facebook bought them because of the making money, this happened, right? Is this security thing happened, right? Is that correct?
That is correct. So this is Facebook's enforcing it.
Okay.
Um,
I got a video. Somebody sent a video on internet. I can send it to you. This video was saying that there is a place in Facebook. You go and you do some. If you see they are saving all of your information, you whatever search you have done, all of the link is there. But you can go and clear this tree and disable it, so they will not be able to
yes.
save. Never. Also, the question is that if you do that on Facebook, would it affect your WhatsApp or not?
No.
They are separate entity, although Facebook bought them.
Well, it's not about entity. It's about a service.
So
Facebook
they said
is
they're
a website,
working
right?
differently. The Facebook and
Yeah,
WhatsApp,
they
they're
have complete. So to give you more like description on it, they have complete different service.
well, then
They have complete
this would
different.
lead, correct. So this would lead me to another question, that WhatsApp, before even when they established WhatsApp, before Facebook bought them, so they were like Signal and WhatsApp were the same. So they did not have this much access to your information, or after Facebook they bought them, they changed it.
Um,
You get my question?
so the thing is, any service on the internet, if you're using it, they have access to your information if you
Correct.
allow them to see that information. How they use it is what defines, in my opinion, if I were to use them.
Correct.
So, and this is something that we need to be aware of is if you are using a website, if you're using an application, or any service that's on the internet,
Hmm.
you are willingly communicating with them and sharing information with them.
Okay.
And what they do with that information determines what you get to see from them.
Correct. Let me ask you another question, because I have a lot of technical question here. The other question, the message they send me, they said you do copy and paste. If you still do, for example, I get a message from you, I copy that. There is two ways. I can forward to another group, or I can copy and paste. Would it help copying and pasting in another group? Would it, or would the same thing? It doesn't matter. You
I'm
got my
sorry,
question?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, you send me a message. Okay, let's say in
Mhm.
WhatsApp. You send me a
Mhm.
question. I read the question. Is a good subject? Is a video, or maybe it's a text. Let's talk about the text. You
Mhm.
send me some information, good information, hadith or something.
Mhm.
There is two way I can forward that message to another group or another brother or somebody else, or I can copy. You know, you go and copy, and go and paste to that individual. Would it make any difference technically? And you got it now.
Technically, it won't make any difference. At the end, you are sending a message to another person. What I would say is it just leaves a data point, right? So if you're forwarding it, then you
Correct.
can connect back to the person who actually originally sent the message.
Oh, so it'd be even if you go forward, then you even send the
Yes,
source because
because
I see
so you
that's
can have a chain on it. Now,
so that's
whether they
even
are
better
keeping,
because go ahead.
well, it depends. Who's it better for? If it's some sensitive information, you don't want to
Yes,
disclose that, or who sent it.
correct. I
If
understand.
if it's not sensitive information, sure,
It's like a
it's
hadith. Do you
helpful.
think all of this general information is not sensitive? Like all of this wajib, the thing that we know,
Yeah.
the daily
So
things.
again, it's not about the content of what type of communication you're trying to have, right? Sorry. Let me rephrase that. It's not about the communication itself. It's about the content of the communication, right?
Correct.
Who you're trying to contact, how are you communicating with them, what kind of discussion you're going to have with them,
Correct.
and is it a sensitive information, whether it's a financial information, a
I see.
security information, a privacy information. It really depends on what you are and who you're trying to contact.
Exactly. So
If
I'm
it's going
assuming
to be like so consider this:
mm,
if you are talking to a person and they may or may not have committed a crime,
okay.
but you are talking to them at a train station where there are other people that are listening in your conversation,
Correct.
and you tell them to that person that I think you're guilty, then
Okay, let me.
people around them.
I'm sorry. Let me ask you this one. Let me go this way. You send me hadith. You send me a video about a hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam to me,
Mhm.
and then I see is a good hadith. I want to send it to brother X and Y and Z or that group. This is basic. This is not any sensitive information. It's public
Yeah, it's not.
information.
Yeah, it's not. That's not a
But
problem.
I'm not here because now if it's political things, hot things,
Mhm.
might be right. Maybe,
Yes, absolutely.
but nevertheless, I'm assuming you see that's very simple stuff. So as long as we are staying in our border and then we are following, we are not going beyond our limit. So I'm assuming what did they want to do with this information with hadith of Imam Ali? Hey,
Yeah,
natural love
but
is right there, right?
the idea there is, I would argue, even if it's like mundane communication,
Uh-huh.
it should be secured. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so basically, this is your
Brother,
information, but it's not.
can I
It's not
interject real quick?
anymore.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time, brother. I don't mean to cut you off, but inshallah, we'll take one more question from another member if they have any, and then inshallah, if brother Naqi feels he can share his information where to reach out to him, and we can continue the
Thank
conversation
you, brother
offline.
Abbas. Sorry, my question was a lot of question. That was my question. I appreciate that.
No problem. No problem. Thank you. Does anybody else have a question before we close off this session?
So how do you make a message encrypted? How do you make it?
You don't have to do that yourself. If you're using certain website or application, they're the ones making sure that those encryptions are taking effect and being done. Which is why we need to make sure that we are keeping these services accountable and asking them to do that.
So without using this encryption application, and if I send a message from forward, still I could be subject to some crime, commitment of crime.
Well, the thing is, with WhatsApp in particular, we know that they are encrypting messages for everyone.
I see.
And that is true for a lot of different applications, because at the end of the day, it's in their interest to keep our information secure, because if it's secure, we'll use them. Where we need to be aware of it is what is secure and why should it be secure. As Brother Hassan was talking about, it to me, and I think a lot of people in our tech community share this too, is it doesn't matter if information is mundane, day to day and daily stuff. If it's a private conversation, it should be private. If I am talking to somebody in my home, that stays in my home. It doesn't leave my home. And that is the same kind of um, um, expectation that I would have with a chatting platform. If I'm talking to somebody in private, it's a communication that I'm having with them privately. Then nobody should have access to it except me and that person. And the content of it doesn't matter, whether it's self-incriminatory, whether it's inflammatory, anti-Semitic, racist, whatnot, doesn't matter, political or whatnot. If it's a private conversation, it should be private conversation. So it's kind of like akin to patient-doctor privacy, right? And also like lawyer and
Right.
immunity, right? So if I can talk to my lawyer whatever I want, that shouldn't be in court. The challenge comes in is these services are skimming those rules and regulations by reading information about us, sometimes with our knowledge, most times without our knowledge, and then sharing that with other entities, which can then be sent and read by who knows who. We don't know. So that's where we need to make sure that we keep them accountable of it. And of course, we can voice our concerns or choose not to use a service if they're not doing it.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Brother Naqi, for your time. Inshallah, before we wrap it up, Brother Naqi, would you like to make any closing statements?
Excuse me. Yeah, so one quick, which I've been alluding towards, is that internet is a public forum, and we should treat it as a public forum. And we should tread very safely on how, who, where, and when we communicate with these services or people, and make sure that it's very deliberate on what we are trying to share, and not out of it should be a deliberate communication.
Alhamdulillah. Again, thank you, Brother Naqi, so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Inshallah, thank you, everyone, for attending this session. Brother Raza, are there any closing remarks you'd like to add?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming in. Inshallah, we'll try to have more sessions, educational sessions for the community. Inshallah, next week we're planning to have a fiqh related session. The topic is family fiqh. We will inshallah send out the mode of questions and answers because we're learning as we go. And I guess more importantly, if there are topics that you guys want us to attack in future sessions, whether religious or general, so please let us know. And we'll inshallah be happy to do something for that. So once again, we can close with loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
And thank you for this forum. I think this is a very good effort on our part to go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
In the future, it will definitely be helpful for everybody and for the community.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you.
Shukran. Okay. With that, we'll conclude. Thank you all so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.